Yo, what it up? What it doing? How's it going, everyone? Yeah, so, hello. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. If you're listening to the podcast version, hello. If you're interested in live stream versions of things like this, where I talk about nerd stuff all the time, you can follow the TheNerdLedger podcast. I haven't done that in a while because my friend who I do with, he's had some stuff going on, so we haven't been able to a lot, but we're going to pick it back up soon. Or you can follow my personal podcast called Life Serial, where this will be posted along with on the TheNerdLedger. So you can follow back and forth between those. You can follow me on YouTube at KaJetheHammer. You can also follow the stream at KaJetheHammer. KaJetheHammer. That's the Twitch handle. So yeah. Anyway, down to business, okay? I saw Venom. Alright? I saw it. And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. I saw it Thursday night at the DriveIn, of all places. So, I've been to the DriveIn where I live a total of 3 times in my entire life. The first time was when I went on my second date with my wife. And I don't really remember the movies, so I don't really care. The second time I saw Shang-Chi, and it wasn't entirely clear, like the picture. It was like, because obviously it's being projected on the screen outside and whatever, and there's all sorts of other elements in there, so you don't always get a clear picture. And the third time was for Venom, and again, you don't always get a clear picture. I saw both Shang-Chi and Venom again in a theater, and the video quality is so much better. So I don't mind the drive-in. I think it can be like a fun date place, but I don't know how many more premieres I'll be seeing there just because the quality is not great. But other than that, all right, let's get down to business. Venom. Venom was a fine movie. I'm gonna get into spoilers, so if you don't like spoilers, you might want to go away for now and come back later when you've watched the movie or you don't care. But yeah, so Venom, like I said, is just a fine movie. It's nothing special. It's nothing terrific. If you love watching Tom Hardy improv and argue with the Venom symbiote as Eddie Brock, you'll probably love this movie because that's probably 80% of it. It's just him arguing with himself like an old married couple who needs couples counseling in a very toxic relationship. I was pretty disappointed with Cletus Cassidy. He just kind of said weird cryptic shit. Like some villains can pull that off when the weird cryptic shit makes sense, but with him it just didn't make any sense. He would just say really obvious but stupid things, and it wasn't profound in any way. When he became Carnage, the Carnage suit looked really good. A lot of people might complain it was too big or something because Carnage in comics isn't typically that big, but I don't really care about that. I thought he looked really good. I thought Venom still looks good as well. If you care about the story at all, you'll probably be pretty bored with this movie. It seemed very contrived in a lot of ways. They just kind of forced everything to go where it should instead of allowing the story to flow freely and get to where it needs to ultimately go. It seemed very forced in, especially it's ironic, Shriek, her power destroys Carnage, but she's in love with Cletus and all this stuff, and creates this kind of tension. And it just so happens that the cop in San Francisco who is talking with Eddie and whatever is the cop that shot her in the face and made her lose an eye. And so it all works perfectly. It all comes together in the end. So I guess. And I get it. Like, they want to use characters like Patrick Mulligan, who was the cop. Sorry, I don't know who the actor was. I don't really care. But Patrick Mulligan is the cop, and people familiar with comics know Patrick Mulligan becomes Toxin. So we know he's probably not really dead. It looked like, Carnage looked like died. Cletus got his head bitten off, so he's definitely dead. And yeah, it's like, it's weird for them to set up Toxin though in some ways because of the post-credit scene. It's like you're trying to set up something to continue to build your world, your version of the Venomverse or whatever it is, your version of Marvel, whatever it may be. It's weird to try to build that by hinting to Toxin and doing all this stuff, while at the same time essentially joining the MCU, or we're led to believe. So it's an interesting thing to think about for sure. It's an interesting thing to ponder. Maybe we won't get Toxin. Blue Eyes tell me we probably will in some way, shape, or form. But there are a couple things we need to really consider, because the big thing that came out of this as well, the post-credit scene. That's the thing that everyone's talking about. That's the only thing people seem to want to talk about. No one, I don't think, even cares about the movie anymore. They just want to talk about the post-credit scene. And everyone I've talked to, it means this. It has to be this. It has to be this. And I think what we end up doing with reveals like this is kind of thinking very narrowly about them while overthinking it. Right? We all could have watched the movie and seen Venom eats Carnage, bites the head off of Cletus Cassidy. We set up for Toxin, all this stuff. We all saw that. And a lot of people still come to the conclusion that we'll never see Cletus Cassidy again because we saw him die. We'll never see Carnage again because we saw him die. Well, you have to understand that what is actually being built here is a world of infinite possibilities. We might not see that Carnage again. We might not see that Cletus again. But that doesn't mean we'll never see those characters again, because there are infinite possibilities at this point. The MCU has been trying to establish this for a while. This is what essentially everything that's been released during the pandemic has been leading to, is this idea of infinite worlds, of, some would say, maybe something like Secret Wars, where we have the merging of worlds. And in the post-credit scenes, it appears that Venom's world, the Venom universe, has arrived in the MCU. Now, we don't know that for sure. That's what it looks like, because we have the report, J. Jonah Jameson talking about Peter Parker is Spider-Man. We see Tom Holland Spider-Man. So we're led to believe now that Venom is now in the MCU universe. Whether that's a result of Doctor Strange's spell or something later in that movie that creates some kind of convergence, right? We don't actually know. And despite what we've seen in the trailer for Far From Home, we don't actually know how that will all transpire either. Like, what it looks like is, okay, we have Peter, everybody knows he's Spider-Man now. He's going to school. People hate him and all this stuff. And he wants the public to forget that he's Peter Parker, that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And so he goes to Doctor Strange and he, do the spell, and then we know the spell goes wrong. And we can assume that no one actually forgets who he is, because if they did, then we probably wouldn't have this post-credit scene. We don't actually know when it takes place. It could take place right when Spider-Man's identity becomes revealed, like at that moment. But then the spell wouldn't have brought Venom to it. It could take place as the spell is cast, creating this merging, which means that the spell didn't work, because we still have J. Jonah Jameson saying Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So the spell only can make it worse. Or we can do this kind of like Doctor Strange mentions in the trailers, like you're kind of like living in two worlds almost. He says something to that effect. So Maybe it's like we think the spell works. Peter goes about his life. Everyone forgets that he's Spider-Man. But then there's a splintered reality right next to it where everyone remembers. And we have the multiverse kind of open at that point. We don't actually know any of this stuff. So it's fun to speculate and talk about. I'm just looking forward to seeing where everything goes. Yeah, of course I've thought about what could happen. But I'm not thinking this will happen. I think that's a dangerous line of thinking. Anytime you think, for sure this is going to happen, for sure, and you go and it doesn't, and then you end up disappointed. Well, it's your own fault for building your expectations to something that was never confirmed, even if it was teased in your mind, right? And that's what happened a lot with like The Last Jedi. A lot of people hated it because in their mind Disney was setting up all this stuff. We know now, especially in hindsight, that Disney didn't set up anything. They just didn't care. They had no plan whatsoever. J.J. Abrams admitted he didn't set up anything. He didn't set up Rey's parentage. He didn't have a plan for it. He may have established questions about it, but he didn't have a plan for it. He didn't have a plan for Snoke, all that stuff, whatever. Anyway, back to this. So is the post-credit scene in Venom 2 setting up for Venom 3 or setting up for Far From Home? Are we going to see Venom in Far From Home? And something I found really interesting is, before the, essentially convergence or whatever happened, right? Before the shining light and, Venom now in the MCU thing. He was talking to Eddie and he's talking about secrets and he's like, yeah, Eddie's like, you don't keep secrets from me though. And Venom's like, well, of course, I have like 1.5 billion years of hive knowledge within me. And then when he sees Spider-Man, he says, that guy, and he looks at the screen, right? He says, that guy. And you know what? That's because of that hive knowledge, right? That's what we can assume. We can assume it's because of that hive knowledge. He knows who Peter Parker is because, well, in certain universes, Secret Wars, Peter was the host of that same symbiote. In Earth 616 comic book storylines, Peter was the host of that symbiote. In Ultimate Universe, Peter's been the host of that. So the symbiote of Venom is familiar with Peter Parker. Even if he was never on the MCU's Peter Parker, he's familiar with Peter Parker. And I think that's interesting. And I hope in my heart of hearts that eventually we see a black suit Spider-Man in the MCU that works. We might not ever see that. I mean, and one of the most interesting things for me is like, one more day, brand new day, whatever. These stories. These comic book stories, right? When they came out, people hated them, despised them. Because of what they did to Peter's relationship with Mary Jane. People hated it. But everything that leads up to it, I think, is amazing. I personally enjoy it a lot. Right? But it's so funny to see people that despise that story get so excited for the next Spider-Man movie and the future and Venom and all this stuff because they just, they hated the story in the comics. And I get it. They're going to be completely different things. I mean, Peter in the MCU is not married to MJ. She's not pregnant with his child. Mephisto isn't going to show up and offer the deal or any of that. I mean, will Aunt May get killed because Peter's identity is revealed? That would be very interesting. But in the comics when that happened, and he went and got the black suit and he broke into prison and destroyed Kingpin, like that was some of the craziest things I've read, and I thought that was really good. Like that build up to everything. I mean, sure, it's okay. Obviously people can feel the way they feel, and I understand like being disappointed that hey, MJ and Peter's romance. Their marriage, their unborn child, it's all gone. To save Peter's identity and to bring Aunt May back, right? That's what he does in that book. Obviously, there's a different approach here with Doctor Strange's spell. And we don't know if it works or not, so if it doesn't work, what's going to happen? Will we get Mephisto? Will we get a deal like that? I don't know. Probably not. I don't see it. I mean, with all the how much fans can influence media these days, it's possible. I mean, everybody thought Mephisto was going to show up all through WandaVision, and there was never a plan for that. But with all that hype and all that noise, maybe Marvel was like, hey, people want it, let's do it. I think that'd be a mistake. I don't mind Mephisto, but it's like, you shouldn't just bring him in to bring him in just because people want you to. You should obviously just bring him in because you feel like it's a good character and there's a purpose for it. I think that's the best way to do things. But yeah, that's really, I mean, on the Venom story, like I kind of touched on it a bit. Like everything seemed a bit convoluted. At times the story seemed slow. Cletus was kind of underwhelming, but if you love Eddie and Venom arguing with each other, going at it, all that stuff, I think you would love the movie. And I know people who love the movie. I know people who were bored and didn't really care, whatever. The movie's doing well, box office wise. So if you haven't seen it and you're interested, and I just spoil it for you, whatever, go see it, enjoy it. If that's something that sounds appealing, but. The post-credit scene is what everyone's talking about. It's what all the news sites are reporting on. It's, don't spoil Venom. That's what everyone said. And then, the second it comes out, you have all the news sites saying, what's up with that post-credit scene? And in the thumbnail, you see Spider-Man. It's like, come on, man. Like, at least I say spoiler warning and give you a chance to leave. But ultimately, I'm excited for the future of the MCU. I always have been. Where does Venom fall in the grand scheme of things? To me, it feels like an early 2000s superhero movie in a lot of ways. I think they're trying to build something to franchise it and continue on. Are they building for the Sinister Six and Venom 3? That's what Sony says. It looks like they're trying to build the Sinister Six for No Way Home. But again, we don't know anything yet. It'll be very, very interesting to see what happens, to see what the future holds, to see what No Way Home holds. Like right now, as far as superhero movies for the year, Shang-Chi is by far the best. Will it be better than the Eternals? Will it be better still after No Way Home? We don't know. I think No Way Home will probably be the best one of the year. I mean, that's just the scale of it, the amount of things they're doing with it, the amount of things we've seen already. It looks incredible. It looks like, at least, a massive undertaking, getting even Doc Ock coming back, Alfred Molina coming back to play Doc Ock. We see Green Goblin's Pumpkin Bomb. We know Electro, played by Jamie Foxx, is going to be there. A lot of people are assuming Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. We don't know those things, but if we see them, obviously that'll be amazing, and I'm super stoked for all of that. I'm super excited for what the future holds. I mean, after so long without content, now we've got a bunch of shows on Disney Plus that we've watched and everything else. Which reminds me, like when Cher's ready to come back for the NerdLedger, when we start podcasting again, we got a lot to talk about. I mean, a lot's gone on since we last talked. We have to talk about Suicide Squad. We haven't talked about that yet. The Bad Batch, we talked a little bit about it, but we never talked about like the finale and anything. We're gonna talk about Shang-Chi, if he's seen it at least. What if I have a lot to say about that. Maybe if he's seen Venom. I mean, there's even news about the Lord of the Rings series from Amazon that I want to talk about. There's other news. There's so much going on all the time right now with nerd stuff. I mean, Hawkeye coming out in November, and Eternals coming out soon. Like, there's just a lot, and I'm super excited, and I can't wait to talk about more. I'm feel very bad I haven't been putting out content as much as I would like lately, and it's mostly just because I've been working a lot. That's really what it comes down to. But I can't wait to talk more, share more stories, talk about some personal stuff, and if anybody has any suggestions, ideas, feedback, anything at all, it's much appreciated. If you're listening to the podcast, you can subscribe if you enjoyed. You can rate and review. It helps other people find and be like, hey, this might be something cool to watch. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also subscribe. You can like the video, all that stuff. This right now, what I'm doing is just going to be a podcast and a video on YouTube. But in the future, there will be more live streams through Twitch, and you can catch those live and interact live and whatever as well. But I didn't really want to go live for like 10 minutes just to talk about this by myself, and I'm sure I'll address it again in the future with other people because I love talking to other people about this stuff to bounce off of them. Maybe a lot of stuff I said was stupid and they saw it a different way and we could talk about that. It's really fun. So that's it. That's all I have. Again, rate, subscribe, blah, 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 do all that shit. I'm Cage, the Hammer, whatever you want to call me. Much love, and see ya.